We're just waiting a few moments for some more people to join in, and then we'll get started with the webinar. Well, it's time to begin. So hello, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. This is the 5th English webinar in the series that are taking place to highlight women in Africa's young leaders. If this is your first time tuning into the series, a bit of background about it. A jury selected 8 remarkable young women in their field of activity or skill, and the 8 winners are benefiting from a tailor-made training course. As part of that process, they also get to share their story. It's an initiative that is part of Women in Africa's desire to promote equal opportunities and to allow young leaders to be supported each year to go further. And for today's session, I'm going to be in conversation with Dr. Folake Oni. Dr. Folake is a development consultant, a medical doctor, youth development advocate, and public speaker, currently serving as principal and director, business strategy and transformation at Sydani Group. So for the next 45 minutes, we'll be in conversation, finding out a bit more about Dr. Folake, and then for the last 15 minutes, we'll open the floor for any questions that you might have. So please do ask any questions that you have. You can either raise your hand and ask the question directly, or you can put a question in the chat box, or if you're on LinkedIn or wherever you're looking, there should be a comment section where you can put some questions in. So Dr. Folake, thank you for joining us and taking part in this today. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Lisa-Marie. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm very well as well. So I realized just before this, we're both in London, which is good. So I just want to get a bit into you and your personal story. So you've worked in multiple roles across development, tech, and health. So let's go back. What did you initially choose to study? Because I know you just told me now you're doing a PhD. So what was your initial entry into university? What did you decide to do?
My bachelor's was in medicine, so I decided to study medicine. And as I've been told by my parents, I think I've been talking about being a doctor for the longest time, since I was 5, I guess. And for me, it was because I wanted to be able to help people. And more importantly, I was told that I'd always said I wanted to be able to help women deliver their babies. So that's how I got into medicine, studied medicine for the 6 years, and then graduated and practiced clinical medicine for 10 years before I then moved into development consulting. So what made me do that was in the period when I was practicing medicine and working in the hospital, it was a government hospital. I got appointed into several roles, leadership roles, management roles that required leadership and management skills that I hadn't been taught or equipped with from medical school. And I struggled for a bit. And so for me, it was how do I equip myself or get better at being able to deliver on these skills, but at the same time, strengthening the health system that I care so passionately about. So I came to the UK, got an MBA, and then returned to Nigeria and then moved into health management consulting, which is where I've been since then.
And you're currently doing a PhD as well?
Yes, so I'm doing a PhD. I'm doing a DBA, actually. It's a doctorate in business administration. And the motive is to really try and see how I can research into helping medical professionals like myself to develop those leadership and management skills. So my research is focused on investigating the value of teaching entrepreneurship in the undergraduate medical curriculum in Nigeria. A lot of countries are starting to do that now, realizing that medical professionals would always, as you grow through the ranks and interact with people and respond to health challenges, and you want to design intuitive, fit-for-purpose solutions for the kinds of healthcare challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis, you have to have certain skill sets that you are not equipped with from the medical school. So there are schools in the US and Canada, and now in the UK, the NHS is beginning to consider having apprenticeship and fellowships for medical professionals to gain entrepreneurial or leadership and management skills. So that's what I'm trying to investigate. Is there value in bringing that into Nigeria and maybe integrating entrepreneurship education in the Nigerian undergraduate medical curriculum?
So this integration between entrepreneurship and also the medical profession, what sparked that off in you? What's your own entrepreneurial journey, and how did you go about linking the two and thinking that this is actually important for people to learn and know?
So we started from when I began to get appointed into senior roles, practicing as a clinical practitioner in the hospital that I talked about earlier. And at some point, there were issues that we're facing that were not really just about treating the patients and prescribing medications or investigating the cause of a disease. It was more around administration and leadership and management. And then at that point, somewhere around that time, Ebola happened. And I happened to be the coordinator of the response to Ebola in my hospital and the isolation center. So I realized that there were a lot of other things that needed to support the clinical response that we provided, including onboarding people and how to communicate, providing crisis and risk communication to the public, designing job aids for clinical professionals to know what to do in the event that somebody comes with an Ebola symptom or signs and symptoms of Ebola, and many other things like that. So I got interested in the health systems part of medicine, if I could put it that way. And I wanted to see I wanted to be more aware, or I want to have more knowledge around what I could do to strengthen the health system. What are those decisions that are made at the Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria or the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency that helps to put the system in place for doctors to come practice? Because we do not have a lack of well-meaning, good-intentioned doctors or clinical professionals to provide services to patients. What I think we need more of is the administrators, the people who manage the system and put the right things in place for medical professionals to be able to do their job and do it really well. So that for me was the start of my quote unquote entrepreneurial journey. And then I came to do the MBA. I was exposed to financial management, marketing and sales, human resource management, things that I had not been taught in medical school. That was very interesting for me because I realized we're dealing with all of those things as well in the medical sector. So when I returned to Nigeria and I moved into management consulting, working with Sydani as well, we've been designing solutions, helping the health sector to put things in place to strengthen the health system in Nigeria and in a few other countries as well. And it was in that moment that I realized maybe there are many other people who have the same struggles that I have, because the curriculum in the undergraduate school for medicine has not changed. And if what I was taught is what other people have been taught, and the realities on ground are changing. I mean, we've seen COVID. The response to COVID was no one country knew what to do about COVID. Everyone just had to look inward and just think about what they could use within their context and their own spaces and how to generate resources to address the issue. So for me, it was, how do I help the Nigerian medical system in a way that we're starting to prepare medical leaders of the future, people who are not only equipped with the clinical skills to address healthcare challenges in the clinical setting, but are also equipped with the entrepreneurial leadership, management, business mindsets that would help us to begin to design solutions beyond just sitting in our spaces in our consulting rooms. How do we bring finance and medicine together? How do we bring tech and medicine together to begin to design those solutions? So that's what brought me to the point of the PhD.
You currently work with Sydani Group, which you've mentioned briefly. So what exactly do you do?
So I'll start by saying what Sydani does. Sydani is a management consulting firm in the development space. We have 6 areas of interest: health, education, agriculture, human capital development, climate change, and energy. At the moment, we're really very heavy on health because that's kind of where we started from. And what we do in the health sector is to support the design of innovative solutions to health challenges. For instance, the healthcare budget, we know many countries struggle with their healthcare budget. So we design solutions around ensuring that the budget speaks to the healthcare strategy. The officers in the Federal Ministry of Health are well equipped with the skill sets to plan healthcare priorities, plan and prioritize, and then develop budgets for those budgets that can then get appropriate funding allocated to them promptly as well, and are then able to expend that budget in a way that delivers the impact that we want to the common man on the street, or the common Nigerian on the street. For COVID-19, we designed the strategy that helped Nigeria to address COVID-19 and moved the number of people vaccinated between January and December from 4% to about 56%. So those are the kinds of things that we do. There's a lot of service delivery going on in there as well, where we support the primary healthcare system, secondary healthcare system in supplying or providing services to the community, to the individuals, clients, and patients. But at the same time, you want to make sure that there's enough funding, there is enough, the policies are right, and they're being implemented the right way. The strategies are designed to operationalize the policies, and all those other, bits and pieces here and there that put the system in place for the people to be able to function effectively. That's what Sydani does. What I do is that I serve as a principal. I'm a principal at Sydani, and my portfolio revolves or focuses on human resources for health leadership and governance, strengthening health policy and planning. And then I'm also in charge of business development and partnerships within the organization.
What does a normal day look like for you?
Wow. A normal day, I think about it as my 9 to 5 and my 5 to 9, really. So for my 9 to 5, that's what I give to Sydani. And that's what I'm at work. Starts out with either having check-in meetings with my teams across the different projects that I supervise or oversee, reviewing documents, attending meetings with high-level stakeholders across the different partners or agencies that we work with. And then at the end of the day, by 5, I have some time for family, because I have 2 kids, and we get to do homework, talk about the day and all of that. And then my 5 to 9, I focus on my own personal, I would say personal professional journey, which is all of the things that I'm interested in and passionate about: women development, youth development, building entrepreneurial and employability skills for youths. That's what a normal day would look like. Right now, I'm doing my PhD. So if you top that, everything I've said with a
it's a lot of stuff to cram into one day, Folake. I don't know how you're doing it.
Yeah, so that's what my day looks like at the moment.
So have you always been interested in human development? Yes. And also business development, something that's always been there?
Yeah, always.
So you've also founded Renewed Minds.
Yeah.
Can you explain more about that and what you do?
So Renewed Minds is a program that we run quarterly. It's a 4-weekend program, and it involves building high performance or preparing youths between 21 and 30 years of age for high performance in any area or any endeavor they find themselves in, or whatever it is they're passionate about. And what we focus on is talking about who you are, helping you to understand your personality, give you insights into the things that I would call strengths, areas that when you work from, it's so easy. It's so easy to just do anything or function in that area, and help you to see how you can build from that area into the other areas that you're interested in and are probably not equipped enough for. So, but first of all, we have psychometric and personality tests that everybody takes when you join the program. It helps you to understand your personality, but also helps you to know that it's not a closed case. It's not cast in stone. That this test has told you have this kind of personality does not mean that's who you're going to be for life. It evolves, and it can be very circumstantial or situational. So we start from there, and then we have courses and modules that people take. We have breakout sessions. It's a virtual program, and people join every Saturday for about 3 to 4 hours, 4 Saturdays in a row. And then we have conversations with the team. Everybody, when you talk about stuff that you're going through or things that you're doing, somebody else is challenged or encouraged to do more and to understand that they're not, whatever struggle it is, they're not going through it all by themselves. And then at the end, what we hope to see is that people are now more self-aware, more socially aware, more intentional about their growth and performance, and there's this accountability network that we also try to put in place, so that when you've talked about your plans and your vision, somebody on the team you check in once in a while and you're able to ask yourself, so how is it going? Where are you? What do you need? This is what I'm doing as well. Is there some collaboration we could do? How could we make sure that we're accountable to each other? So that's what Renewed Minds is about. That's the program, the high performance coaching program that has started. There are a few other initiatives that are, up our sleeves and will be coming on very shortly in 2023.
What inspired you to create Renewed Minds?
Two things, really. One is my passion for human capital development. And then secondly, my struggle. And I wish that I had the opportunity to join such a program free, without, at no cost, and have someone who has lived that experience or journeyed that road, just tell me where the bends are, or tell me where where the barriers and how to navigate those bends. That's what I wish that I had. Maybe they existed at the time, I was between 21 and 30 years of age as well, and I didn't know, but I certainly didn't have that time. One thing I did have was mentors. I had mentors for different parts of my life and my career particularly, and those really helped me. So a lot of the things that go on Renewed Minds as well are lessons that I've learned from interactions with my mentors, and the things that have really worked for me in the way that they mentored me. And that's what I hope to be able to do for young people within that age group on Renewed Minds.
We're going to go on to mentorship, but I want to keep it with Renewed Minds. And just for people who might be tuning in to find out, okay, that sounds like something I would love to do. Yeah. Where do you even start to think this is what I would put in a course? Or you mentioned that this is something that you offer for free. So the time it's taken to actually create that course, what was the process like for you?
So I needed two things, because I also had the struggle. I kept asking myself, are you even eligible to be mentoring or coaching anyone? What makes you think you're the right person? So I took courses and I sought for certifications. Haven't really found any that is globally recognized, but I took courses. I sat and watched videos of other people who had coached people. And of course, like I said before, I'd learned from my own mentorship experience with my mentors. And I realized that if I was going to do it as a virtual session, it would have to be facilitated by something. So that's when the courses, the facilitation materials were put together, just helping people to follow through when we're having conversations. One other thing that I've learned in human capital development is for adult learning, it's very experiential. So the lesser you talk, the more you allow the interactions, the more the impact and the takeaways that people have from those kinds of sessions. Those inform the design of the program and how it works. In terms of the content of what goes into the facilitation materials, it's all from my journey. It's all from what has worked for me, the personality tests, how being self-aware has really helped my growth and performance, and helped my being socially aware as well. So all of those actually came from just my experience and my journey. But the design of the program and the way it runs is more from everything that I've learned from a lot of people.
And how many hours does a course take for someone to be able to complete it?
It's 3 to 4 hours every Saturday, 4 Saturdays a month, and we do it once every quarter. And at the end of the 12, maybe 16 hours, that's it. It's not accredited or anything, so there's really no certificate in that sense. What we want to do is just give a certificate of attendance, something that just shows you were part of it and you got something from it. And then we want to hear from you, and we follow up with you, want to hear how your journey has maybe changed, your trajectory has changed, your performance has improved in anything that you're doing or anywhere, or maybe how you're starting to now achieve your vision, all of the vision and goals that you shared with us on the program. So that's the follow-up that happens after the 4 weekends.
Now, to be able to do these multiple endeavors, you must have a team around you to help support that. Tell us a bit about your team and how instrumental it is to be able to do the things that you do.
Wow, my team, I'm always going to be grateful for the people that I have around me. At Sydani, I have teams across the different projects. It's an established organization. So that's kind of, I wouldn't say simple or easier, but at least there's a structure in place. And people know that getting paid for what they come to work to do. So somehow there's also that accountability that's going on. For the Renewed Minds, however, it's all volunteers, people who bought into the vision, people who are also interested in helping youth to also grow. They are youths themselves, even within that age group, but just realizing the struggle is real for everyone. And because they have also benefited, because they're also beneficiaries of the program, because they've benefited from it, they've seen the impact, they feel like, yes, I want to be a part of this. And to be honest, all of the push, because sometimes it can be so overwhelming and you're thinking, do we have to do it this quarter? Really, I think we should just move it to the next quarter and everything. But there's that push. They're always on my case and asking, so what's happening next? When do we do this? How do we do this? They also bring their skills, which are very complementary. So designing flyers, getting the tech part of the program on a Saturday to work. We have issues with the internet, all of those things, the cameras, the lighting, they're in charge of those things. Sometimes I don't have any clue, around managing media and all that. So I would say not only have they been very helpful in terms of keeping me on that track and just helping to make sure that as I'm struggling or juggling other things, this one doesn't fall through the cracks. But also they are very complementary in the skills and the attitudes that they bring to the program.
One thing that you've spoken a bit about is mentoring and how instrumental that was for you. Can you talk about your own mentor journey in terms of how you found a mentor or went about that whole process and how important it has been for you personally having that support?
How did I find my mentors? I think early on, because I had the opportunity for the personality test and everything, it was easy for me to sort of just compartmentalize part of my life into different pieces. So my career, academic pursuits, and all of those things. And then ask myself what I wanted to achieve for each of those areas or each of those compartments, and then begin to seek people that had achieved. Before LinkedIn became so popular and you could use it for almost anything in terms of professional development, I would seek those people out at work, when I sat in meetings, when I went for conferences, I would listen to people speak. And if you really know where you're going, when someone speaks to you, you can tell if you're going in the same direction almost instantly. So it was through all of those networking. Networking was a very huge part of me being able to identify mentors and to have them mentor me. And as soon as I sought them out and found them, I would send them emails. I remember sending emails to random people that I didn't know, but I just read about. I'd read their profile, or I'd read about things that they had done. And I thought, oh, that looks really interesting. And I think this is somebody that I would like to have as my mentor. And some have come back with, positive feedback and affirmative, agreeing to mentor me. And some have said, oh, I'm really busy at the moment. I'm sorry. Maybe every once in a while you want to reach out. I'm happy, but I'm not sure I can do anything scheduled or commit myself or my time to any such thing. And for those who have, who I have been fortunate to have say yes to me and to actually see through, they've not only helped in clarifying things for me as I went on my journey, but have also helped to keep me in check so I don't go too fast or I don't go outside of the path that I feel like that I've charted for myself. So that has really been very helpful. And I've also felt very accountable to them. So when things feel like they're a bit slow, I reach out and I say in the first few years or months, typically there's something on schedule, maybe once a month. But then after a while, as you grow, you also begin to have your own wings. And as you flap them, you don't have to reach out all the time anymore. So when there are huge things, I reach out and I give them progress updates on what's happened so far since we spoke, and then tell them what I want to do going forward and where the kinks are and what I need from them. So that has been very helpful. I think it's been a lot of work on both parties' ends because I appreciate them for the amount of time and effort they've put into mentoring me, but I've also been very proactive about making sure they don't forget that I'm a mentee and they have to keep in touch with me. So that has helped. That's been very helpful. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
Yeah. Well, the next thing I was going to add on to that is you mentioned about compartmentalizing what you do. So your professional, your career, does that play a role in terms of the types of mentors that you go for? So have you gone for someone that's maybe for education or career? How did you go about separating?
Yeah, that has informed the kind of mentors that I go for or go to. For when I was in clinical practice and just working in the hospital, it was somebody in clinical practice who was a fellow or a consultant, as we like to call them, and who had years of practice, under their pockets or in their pockets, and we're also able to demonstrate impact. So when you mention their name in places, people attribute them to positive impact, to value add, and those are the kind of people that I want to associate with. So those are the people that I would reach out to. When I moved into management consulting, I sought out consultants, management consultants who had been in the space. Interestingly, I also have a mentor who moved like me years before. And so that was the first person I reached out to. And I remember the conversation when I said, I hear this thing is really tough. I'd gone to the McKinsey website to even understand what consulting was about. Had no clue because I was coming from clinical medicine and an MBA. And he jokingly said, Folake, the people who are doing it do not have 7 heads. If there's one person who can do it, I'm pretty sure it is you. So go get them. That was, it just sealed it for me. And I haven't looked back since then. It's been, if I could do it in other places, then I can do it here. And then also keeping in mind my objective, constantly going back to that objective for why I'm doing what I'm doing, and using that to remind myself when it looks like things are not going the way that I want them to go.
Do you also mentor people as well?
Yes, I used to do that, first of all, on an informal platform, but now I do that a lot more through Renewed Minds. However, in my church community, I do that. I mean, from that angle, has nothing to do with Renewed Minds, but I do a lot of that. I have people who reach out to me. I have people who I identify from my conversations with them that have a lot of potentials, and I just get interested in helping just be a part of their journeys as well. And I ask politely, I'd like to be an accountability partner. Can I keep in touch with you and just find out how you're doing with this goal or this vision or these targets that you've told me about? And they're happy to say yes. And so that has also blossomed into a mentorship or mentor-mentee relationship.
And do you have a set amount of people that you take on as mentors, or is it really just depends?
It really just depends, to be honest. For the Renewed Minds program, the target is, the cap is 10 per quarter per program. But for on a personal level, it just depends. Some have been very proactive and would not let me rest. And I find that really nice, because I think I did that for my mentors as well. And some have just dropped off along the line, because I have gotten busier myself. It's now maybe once every 2 years. Oh, how are you doing? Last time we spoke, blah, blah, blah. So I think because of the people that are dropping off, it's a lot easier to take on more people who are quote unquote serious or proactive and give my time to them.
So I want to move on to some other of the work that you do. You know, you've mentioned Renewed Minds and the work that you do with Sydani, but you also help support a lot of women and girls who are internally displaced in Nigeria. So how did you get involved in that type of work, and what does it entail?
Right. So this is actually working with Sydani. The support to women and girls, internally displaced women and girls, is more from my work with Sydani. And the first was when we realized that they had been displaced and had spread across other states in Nigeria, you know, displaced from their own states and spread to other states in Nigeria. And so they were disenfranchised from the services that I would say the normal person, I'm not sure if that word is right, would have access to. So we designed a solution or a program to provide, I don't want to say an ending because the project ended after a year, but to provide sexual and reproductive health services to them on the IDP camps. There are a few IDP camps with facilities provided by the government, but they're not as equipped. They don't have all of the human resources. So we got staff, volunteer staff, to work with the staff in the facilities. We partnered with the government as well to ensure that supplies were always there. They didn't run out of stock. We engaged the community leaders and their husbands to help them understand the need for family planning and you know, the use of or the uptake of services, family planning services. Because one thing that we had to struggle with was convincing the men that we weren't trying to stop them from having kids. We were only trying to help them plan their families so they could better take care of them and have at least enough resources to provide for the number of kids that they have. So we did that, and we used technology. We used mobile technology. We used bulk SMSs to send regular messages, educating and raising awareness about family planning in the IDP camps. in that period, we realized there were so many other things that we're struggling with, one of which was sexual and gender-based violence, which escalated during the COVID-19 lockdown, because I mean, men and women were holed up in the house every day, people couldn't go to work. So it just made things a lot worse. And we saw there was a case of a man who chopped off the arm of his wife in one of the states, which was really, really very painful, very depressing. So we set up another solution where we raised awareness around sexual and gender-based violence issues, help them to understand their rights, help them to understand there was access to care and support, and what kind and level of support. We engaged the community leaders and onboarded them on everything that sexual and gender-based violence was about. We found that people didn't really know. There were things that were attributed to culture or norms, social norms. So we had to deal with all of those. There were places where we weren't allowed to get into those communities because the leaders thought that we were coming to teach their wives how to be rude and insubordinate to them. So yeah, we addressed all of those challenges and were able to reach women and girls across 7 IDP camps. So we're running into thousands of people and raised awareness, partnered with shelters, safe spaces and shelters within the state, so that in the event that a case was reported, people would have a place to stay until the until the issues had been settled. We also employed volunteer staff who provided regular education and sensitization and raised awareness, just counseling people, talking about what SGBV was about and how to identify it and where they could go to get care. That project ended last year, December. That's with Sydani. However, there's a new project that I've started personally this year, this February, and it's in the process of working with these people. You realize that a lot of the problems they have come from not having their own financial agency, not having economic empowerment. So what I'm trying to do now with the Excel project is to design a system where we can link these people to established SMEs around them, whether it be tailoring, baking, catering, mechanics, whatever that SME is that is already doing something, we could link them there, build their capacity, equip them with financial literacy for a period of 3 months, and then get them to get the hands-on skills for these kinds of businesses from the established SMEs. Of course, we'll be working with the SMEs as well. And then when they're done with the program, we're trying to create a link with microfinance institutions where we can then raise soft loans for them and administer those loans and help them to also maybe set up their own businesses, so they have something coming in regularly and they have enough resources to be able to take care of their kids, because many of them are either teenage mothers, single parents, SGBV survivors. You find all kinds in the IDP camps, and I just feel that if some of us have the opportunity or have been privileged to have this resources available to us, then it just makes sense to pour that out into the community and help other people as well.
So you're also one of the 30 women across the globe who were recently awarded the Pioneer Forbes Ignite Impact Fellowship Award for designing artificial intelligence and technology called Social Impact. Is that what you were just mentioning, or is that something?
This is the one I was just mentioning, is something starting this year. That's the Excel project. The one with the Forbes award was in 2021, and they identified 30 women across the globe. 3 of us were from Nigeria and a few others from other parts of the world. And we were put into teams and asked to design solutions around different healthcare challenges. The one challenge that my team and I addressed was helping to measure or evaluate the impact of investments, donor investments in healthcare. Is there a way that you keep getting donor aid in many countries and it's targeting healthcare? Like, how do we measure the impact of that investment? So we designed an AI-enabled data system where you could, if you had all the data from the project that you have implemented, you can plug that data into this this AI data-enabled system, where it's able to tell you how much has gone in, what the return on investment has been financially, and what the social impact is. For the social impact, however, we have to usually collect more data than has been collected on the project. So for one that was done recently in India, it was the club foot. And it was to understand for people who had club foods and were getting this quote unquote free services to treat club foods, what has been the impact on their families? If you're a man and you're supposed to be able to take care of your family, but you can't go to work because you have club foods, what was the impact on your family before the club food was treated? And what has been the impact so far now that you've been able to get something to do and provide for your family? Many times for many projects that we implement, you are able to say what has changed for the beneficiary, that one person, that target beneficiary. But the ripple effect on the community or on their families is usually not measured. And I think that if that is measured much more, it can be used as an advocacy tool to show how investments in healthcare don't just die or fall off like the public sector likes to think. It actually impacts on many other parts of the economy, and help in many, many other ways. So that's what we designed. Because I got involved in so many other things, that project has then been continued by 2 out of 5 of us who were on the team, and they've finalized the club food project, and we're even able to present at a conference in the US.
Sounds like really important work and something that would be definitely very beneficial. So you've got a lot on your plate. You've just launched this new initiative as well this month. So what do you help? What are the next stages for it?
You mean for the new initiative?
Yes.
So we're going to be collecting data, baseline data, to just have enough information to refine the approach that we've thought about. And then it would also provide an opportunity to measure impact when we're done. Once we're done with that, then we launch the project and the intervention, we start implementing the intervention. So those are the next steps. I see a few hitches here and there around acceptance, or, the community just accepting that their women will now be empowered, because I think we have a long way to go in terms of social norms and financial agency for women. But we will address all of those as they come in, and it's not something we haven't seen before. So those are the next steps for this year in terms of for the Excel project. For Renewed Minds, we are looking at May for the next cohort, and we'll be publicizing that very shortly. Renewed Minds has a LinkedIn page, it's Renewed Minds. So that's where we'll be publishing it. And of course on my LinkedIn page as well.
Okay, I want to go on to Women in Africa. So you are one of the Women in Africa's young leaders. You're on the program. Number one, what inspired you to apply for it?
Two things. One, network. I wanted to network. I wanted to meet other people from other countries. I wanted to see what they were doing and see what I could learn from what they were doing that could be beneficial for Nigeria. Two, I wanted to learn from what the Women in Africa team itself could give to us, because one of the things they promised was links to people in high places across Africa who you could have conversations with around your vision and potentially strike up collaborations with to help drive that vision. So those were the two reasons that I applied. I really wasn't sure that I was going to be taken, because it was just a lot of, I just thought, okay, let's go for it and see what happens. Worst case, you will get a no, and then you move on to the next, So when I got the email that I'd been selected to face the panel, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to answer the questions. I wasn't sure if I remember that I was speaking so fast, I had to be told to calm down because I wanted to say everything. I was so excited. And it's been one great journey since then. We've met people, we've interacted with a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people really meaning well for Africa, just bringing resources, investments, and just wanting to do stuff and looking for people to drive that vision that they have. It's so humbling, to be honest. And then we've also had, courses and sessions with the KPMG Academy. I've met my colleagues, my peers. We struck up a friendship immediately. We have a WhatsApp group. We're keeping in touch. They're doing amazing stuff across other countries in Africa. And so it encourages me, helps me to see that we're not alone in any country, in any struggle. Everyone is doing one thing or the other in the small space that they have to make a change. You might not be able to change the world, but you can change the world around you. And that's my belief. And that's what I think every one of us is doing on the program.
And how simple was the process when you applied for it?
It was really simple. It was I filled the form in a matter of minutes. It wasn't something you had to go and come back, especially if you know what you want to do and you have a vision, or you're probably doing it already. So it was really simple, very easy. I forgot about it almost immediately because it was that simple until I got the email to come for the panel, for the interview with the jury. I had completely forgotten. Even when I got the email, I was telling others, I think this is scam. Who are these guys? Well, why are they asking me to come for an interview? So yeah, it was that simple, very seamless process.
And would you advise someone to apply for it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not sure when the next cohort will be starting, but if there's anything you should be thinking about applying for this year, it's the Women in Africa program. You're going to learn a lot, a lot. I had my objectives and they were achieved. I don't know what your objectives would be for anyone who is interested, but I would totally recommend it.
Now, to do the work that you do, it takes a lot of confidence, it takes a lot of self-belief. Is that something that you've always had naturally, or is it something that you've worked on and built over the years?
Oh, it's not something that I've had naturally. I've had to build it over the years, to be honest. There have been times that I've had to speak and I was literally stammering and stuttering, and I'm not a stammerer, so I've had to build it. One thing that has helped me really is being knowledgeable about what I'm talking about. Before I get into any room or any space, I want to know, what is it we're discussing? How much do I know? How much am I confident enough to say I do not know, and be willing to learn from the other people in the room? The second thing that I always do is, what's the objective of that meeting or of that conversation? If I know the objective, it provides a map or guide for me in terms of where I'm going with the conversation. So it comes off like I know what I'm saying or where I'm going, only because I've thought about the objective of the conversation, and I don't want to leave that conversation without achieving its objective. So I've had to grow into it. I've had to learn a lot and watch people and how they carry themselves. And yeah, over time, I think it has just helped.
So you would say knowledge, having that knowledge behind you allows you to feel confident when you go into a new space.
Yeah.
So what advice, other than that, what advice would you give for someone who it might be unsure about their next step or what to do, or reaching out to people? Like you said, networking is a big thing.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone to just push themselves forward?
I would say, find that thing that interests you, that thing you're passionate about, that thing that if you didn't do anything else in the world, that will be the one thing that would keep you on your toes. And once you find that thing, and you would know, everyone knows what strikes a chord deep down inside. Once you find that thing, look for people who also have the same passion, because it just feels like fire lighting up fire, right? And if you're fortunate to find someone whose fire is maybe bigger than yours because they lit it up more years before you, then that even helps, because it just keeps pushing you on. And don't ever settle and feel like someone would do the work for you. Everyone has to put in their bits. So even if you find that person, push yourself, push the person, push yourself, push the person continually until you get to where you want to go, or at least until you're starting to see that passion come alive a lot more in terms of impact.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, I'm going to open up the floor. So everyone that is tuning in, please do ask any questions, put them in the chat box, or you can, if you're listening on Zoom, you can raise your hand and you can ask Dr. Folake a question directly. It's now, for the next 15 minutes, we're going to have question and answers. So any questions you have about Dr. Folake's journey, or how she got involved, or any bit of advice that you might want, use this opportunity now to ask her. I do have a few that have been sent to me, so I'm just going to pull them up.
Okay.
Let's just pick one. What is the main obstacle you've had to face in your professional career, and how did you overcome it?
I think I would say it happened in phases. When I was a lot younger, it was, who is this girl and what could she possibly have to say in a room full of people who are older and have been longer in the space. That was the obstacle. How did I overcome it? I said it before, being knowledgeable about what what it's being discussed, but also being humble enough to know what I do not know and be willing to learn from the people in the room. So I would come in confident that I knew what I was saying and I would know where to stop. And then when someone said something that I didn't know, I'll be happy to ask, oh, what do you mean? What does that mean? And be happy to go look it up as well, later after the meeting. That's one obstacle I keep saying when I was younger, it's not like I'm that old, but you get what I mean. And then the obstacle a little later was more in terms of this glass ceiling, it's not invisible, it's really there, but that glass ceiling for women, you just walk into a room and you're just one woman in the midst of all of these men who you also have to demonstrate to that you have a place in that room and you have a seat at the table. And here knowledge comes as well. But there is also that network that you should have built by just showing that you can bring value to anything at all that is put before you. And usually what I do is on the outside, I already have those networks one-on-one. So when I get into a room full of 20 men, for instance, I probably already know 5 or 6 of them, on the outside of that room. And so I start from them mixing, and they are kind and generous enough to introduce me to the others and to put in a word or two that demonstrates what I've done before or what I can do for them. And that has really helped.
I've got another question. It doesn't have a name attached to it, but it's, so we hear a lot about imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt like an imposter in any of the work that you're doing?
I like that question. Yes, I have. And I still probably do every once in a while, not as frequently as I used to, but when something new comes up, a new challenge that I've never been faced with before, then I start that journey all over again. But when I started feeling like that before was when I would say I started coming into my own, just showing that I could do something, and people began to recognize what I could do. And they would say stuff like, oh, that was really fantastic. Oh, that was really good. And I'd be like, no, that's not me. I'm not sure you're talking about the same person. And sometimes I'm unable to believe what I have been able to do myself. And I say that with a very high sense of responsibility. But how did I overcome it? 2 things. One, I didn't run away from failures. I failed at a number of things as well. And I acknowledge those failures. I sit and I ask myself, what did you or what didn't you do that made you fail? Where could you have done something differently? And what could you have done differently? And so when I look back at that process, I'm able to see what I could have done differently. And I don't acknowledge that as failure anymore. I just acknowledge it as something that I could have done a little differently. So that's the one thing I do. I acknowledge my failures as much as people acknowledge my successes or achievements. And then the second thing I do is through mentoring. I then leave that part of me that I see as a strength through people by pushing them as well. I've sometimes been accused of over pushing people, but yeah, I also push them. So when I see them achieve, I'm happy because although I might not be able to recognize my achievements, I can recognize that of others.
It's a very good answer. There's a question from Estelle. She wants to know, how are you able to work? I want to know how we have to work as women who want to have an impact, I guess, on their generation in a difficult environment. So I think she means, how are you able to have an impact, but the environment you're in might be quite difficult to work in?
I think that our journeys, maybe our peculiarities or difficulties are different. I don't know what difficulty you're talking about here, but the difficulties I've faced, I've mentioned a few, in answering the last question. But generally speaking, I would say that being a woman is it's almost similar to being like anyone else, being a man or being anything else, So it's just a population group that is different from the other one because we have biological characteristics that are different from one person to the other. If we start out thinking that as a woman, you are disadvantaged or disenfranchised, and that's where you're coming from, you're going to have a lot of struggle because guess what? Everyone else might be thinking the same thing. So if you're thinking that you are disadvantaged and someone you're speaking with is also thinking you're disadvantaged, you're not going to be selling yourself that strongly. But if you think that as a woman, you are empowered and that you can do that thing that your heart is telling you can do, that thing that you're totally passionate about, that if I woke you up in the middle of the night is the first thing that would come to your mind, you bring that to every conversation. You bring that to every meeting. You bring that to everywhere you show up, and you demonstrate that that's what you have and that you're able to deliver. Also, just respectfully understanding that it also happens in phases. There is a phase where you know you don't know a lot, and you acknowledge that you do not know, but they can see the passion. This lady does not know, but she's passionate about knowing. And then there's a phase where you do know, and they can see you're humble enough to accept other perspectives. You do know, and you probably have done a lot, but there are other perspectives in the room that would help to just spice up that thing that you do know, and you're humble enough to accept them. So I'm not sure what difficulty you're talking about, but I think generally as women, we're not disadvantaged. We're very powerful people. If we do know how to harness that power and use it to our advantage, we are really powerful people.
Mm-hmm. And I've got some few more questions. I'm just going to pick out one. One is asking about your typical day, but you've mentioned your typical day. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I see myself in many places. I don't like monotony. I'm not a routine person in that sense. So I know that I might get quickly, I might begin to think of something new and interesting in a few years again from now. So where do I see myself? I see myself in many places, to be honest. I see myself with renewed minds doing greater stuff than it's already doing. I see myself with the Excel project doing a lot of work as well. I'm not going to tell you I see myself as the president of Nigeria or any of those things, because I don't see myself doing one thing in 10 years. I'm going to be doing a lot, just working from my passion and the potentials that I have.
Okay, what are the main challenges of your job?
My job with Sydani, the main challenge is, I would say, leadership. The technical bits, over time, you just derive a formula for doing the work that you do, and it comes naturally, and you can almost do it with your eyes closed. Of course, there are a few times you have to study a few things to learn a new thing. But leadership, because people are the most interesting beings to manage or to lead, and because they also have diverse interests and skill sets and are coming from diverse perspectives and cultures and backgrounds. And as a leader, if you are going to be impactful or provide value to anyone to any follower, you have to understand each person as an individual, first of all, before you think about them as a collective. So there's no one size fits all. So learning that over time, failing at different points, acknowledging that I could have done better with this leadership or that person or this person, has helped me, because then I'm able to tweak for time and adjust for time. I don't always get it right all the time, to be honest, but I also demonstrate my quote unquote weaknesses to my team. I let them know we're in this together. I might be your leader, but I also have struggles, and I'm happy for you to point those out to me when I'm failing. I'm also happy to be accountable, to be your accountability partner and help, just lead you. So I would say leadership for me has been the biggest thing.
What is your favorite, or what is your current favorite book, film, or series that has inspired you the most over the last few months?
For time management, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. There's one, The Art of War. What's his name again? I can't remember. I'm sorry, but look up The Art of War. It tells you about management. It helps you to, you can't manage a war without being a good manager. So you want to learn management skills, read Art of War. 48 Laws of Power is another one that helped to just boost my confidence and to tell me, to help me to just realize I've got this. It doesn't matter what it is or where it's coming from. You go, girl, you've got this. I think those are the three that readily come to mind. I'm reading a few this year, and probably will be writing as well. Keep your eyes out.
Okay, so potential book in the works as well.
Yes, but those are the ones that come to mind.
Okay, those are some good ones. All right, let me just grab. How do you stay motivated to do the work that you do?
There's this thing that I jokingly say. It's one of my leaders in my church community who said it. He said, responsibility keeps me awake. So responsibility keeps me awake. But how do I stay motivated? I keep my eye on the objective, on that thing that drives me. I'm a very passionate individual, passionate about anything that I put my mind to. And so that thing, that objective, that purpose, that goal that drives my passion is what keeps me motivated. When I'm faced with something really distressing or challenging, I go back to why I am on that journey. And when I go back to why I'm on that journey and I'm able to answer that question again in my mind, then it just reduces the challenge, or the distress reduces it, like shrinks it to the point where it's easier to overcome it at that time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's any such thing as a work-life balance? And are you able to balance what you're doing?
I don't, unfortunately, and I know many people would not agree with me. I think there's just work-life, I don't know if I should say inclusion, but somehow work understands there's life and life understands there's work. And the bridge between the two is you. If you're not able to communicate to work that you have a life and communicate to life that you have a work, it would not balance. It would not, it's just going to be a lot of stress. So at home, everyone gets that I'm a passionate person. Everyone knows what I want to do. Even my kids, they know what I'm passionate about and what I love to do. And when I need to do those things, I have my time. But work also understands, and my bosses, everyone that I've worked with across all the different jobs, also know that I'm very passionate about my family. And so when I need to take time off work, I get that time. But guess what? I would have already, usually would have delivered value. They know that when I'm off work, I'm not lounging and just lying about it. It's because something really pressing has had to take me off work. The contract that everyone signs with their employer is the 8-hour period. If there's anything that you should give in keeping the terms of your contract, it's to give the 8 hours. Anything outside that is yours. And any employer who understands that, when they ask you for anything outside the 8 hours, should be kind enough to say please and to give you something in return for it. If you have that kind of employer, you're likely to be able to strike some balance between the work and the life. But most importantly, do what you love. It would balance if you do what you love, because everyone around you would understand you love it, and that's why you're doing it with as much passion as you're doing it. But I'm sorry, I don't believe there is work-life balance in the sense that people put it.
Okay. So you travel, this is a question asking that you are based, a lot of the work that you do is in Nigeria and you're here in London. How are you able to manage the traveling that you do?
So like I said, time management helps a lot. And so I have my schedule. Everything is scheduled on my calendar, including my rest. I know how many hours I'm spending resting. When I'm reading books, I know how many hours I'm committing to that. So things have already been pre-scheduled. And where an emergency comes up, then I know when to tweak, where to tweak, what to tweak. But things are already pre-scheduled because that time management thing has been put in place already.
Can you share a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey? You've spoken a bit about it, but this question is asking, do you come from an entrepreneurial background?
I wouldn't say yes to that. I come from an academic background. Almost everyone in my family has a PhD. Everyone has a PhD actually, and a few people are professors. So I wouldn't call that entrepreneurial, but I would say that a lot of the skills that I acquired and the qualities that I acquired, I was raised with. I was raised to be analytical. I was raised to be time conscious and to be respectful of time. I was raised to, consider other people, to consider other people's perspectives in any conversation. So no, I wouldn't say that I'm from an entrepreneurial background, but a lot of the skills and qualities that entrepreneurs have, I was taught and raised with from my background.
I think that's the last one because we've run out of time, but this has been so enlightening for me. And I hope that everyone that has listened in, wherever you are, whether it's on Zoom or it's on social media, I hope that you've learned something, because I've learned a lot from you, Dr. Folake. I'm still in awe at your amazing time management, and maybe I should start scheduling my rest time as well, because rest is important. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your own journey with us. It's been really interesting.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Lisa-Marie. We were supposed to talk in December, but you weren't feeling well. I'm glad to see that you're better now.
I'm much better, and I'm so happy that we've got to talk now. So thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
You too. Thank you. Bye.